2025 is coming to an end, and it's a year that has seen a series of important agreements signed between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Rwanda. First, we had the ministerial level, and more recently on 4th December at the presidential level. Hello and welcome to this conversation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Olivier Nduhungirehe. My name is Jackie Lumbasi, and this is RTV. Honorable Minister, thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for having me.
And welcome back from Washington.
Thank you very much.
So President Kagame and President Tshisekedi signed the Washington Accords with President Trump on 4th December, just a few days ago. Tell us more about these accords.
Thank you. This was a historical agreement, the Washington Accords for Peace and Prosperity, which actually comprise three agreements. There is the Declaration of Principles of 25th of April, which was signed in Washington. There was the Peace Agreement of 27th of June, also signed in Washington, and the Regional Economic Integration Framework, which was signed in Washington recently on 4th of December. Those three agreements, including any implementing arrangement or agreement, comprise these Washington Accords. So it's a kind of a framework, it's an agreement that has in it three specific agreements.
Yeah. And then how different are these agreements from those signed in Doha? A lot of people have been trying to find where the two meet.
Those are different but complementary. The Washington Accords are agreements between two states, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, to deal mainly with the security issues between those two countries. And that security issue is around the FDLR, genocidal force, that is supported by the DRC government, embedded in the DRC army. So in Washington, with the peace agreement signed in Washington on 27th of June, the two sides agreed to neutralize the FDLR, which will allow Rwanda to lift its defensive measures. So it's a security issue between the two countries. But then there is another aspect beyond the security aspect. The political aspect that we committed to in Washington is to support what you're talking about, the Doha process, meaning the agreement or the discussions between the government of DRC and the AFC M23, which is a Congolese movement that is representing or defending a Congolese community. So the Doha process is between Congolese.
So the Doha process is not about the two states.
It's between Congolese. The government and the Congolese
AFC
movement. While the Washington Accords for Peace and Prosperity are an agreement between two states. But in any case, those two agreements are complementary. So to reach sustainable peace in Congo and the region would require to implement the Washington Accords, but also to implement the Doha Agreement. And for us, in our perspective, we even believe that to solve this issue once and for all, there will also need to be a third step, which is a national dialogue in Congo, because there is a process that was initiated by the Catholic bishops in Congo, supported by the former president of the DRC, but also the candidates in past presidential elections, which will enable Congo to solve the endemic issue they have, the structural issue they have of lack of governance and corruption, and help in solving the regional issue. Because we are talking about a movement, which is the AFC M23.
Yes.
But in Eastern DRC, there are more than 250 movement. So there is a more structural issue to discuss and resolve in Congo, on top of the Doha Agreement and the Washington Agreement.
Yeah. You know, for the longest time, many assumed that Rwanda invited Doha and Washington into this, until recently when President Kagame said that it was actually an initiative of the DRC. Why do you think people assumed automatically that it would be Rwanda's initiative?
People assume a lot of things about Rwanda, which are not true. You would recall the past agreements, the African processes. There was the Nairobi process and Rwanda process. People should know the truth about those processes. The Nairobi process, which was an EAC-led process, a dialogue, an inter-Congolese dialogue between the government and Congolese movements. This process had two aspects. There was a political aspect and a military aspect. For the political aspect, it was the dialogue in Nairobi. And what happened is that after 2 rounds of negotiations, President Tshisekedi decided to expel the M23 from the dialogue. For the military aspect, there was a ceasefire which was actually implemented on the ground from March to September 2023. And there was an EAC force, ECRAF, East African Community Regional Force, that was deployed on the ground with the Kenyan contingents and also contingents from South Sudan and Burundi. This ceasefire was working to the extent that the AFC M23 had relinquished 80% of the territories it was holding, relinquished to this force, to this ECRAF. But what happened is that President Tshisekedi again was not happy about this force and then decided single-handedly to expel that force. So he expelled the M23 from the dialogue, he expelled the East African Regional Force. So he himself killed the Nairobi process. Then there is the Rwanda process. We had agreed, I spent many days in Rwanda last year. We had agreed on almost everything. Actually, the CONOPS we are talking about, the concept of operation to neutralize the FDLR and lift Rwanda's defensive measures, was already agreed in Rwanda by the by the military officers and then by the ministers on 25th of November. Then there was only one issue that was remaining, which was the commitment by the DRC to engage into direct talks with the M23. Because this was in the question of the M23 was even in the draft that was presented by Angola. Then what happened is that on 14th of December, the ministers met in Rwanda to discuss about that. We spent 9 hours. And then the DRC government categorically refused to dialogue or to commit to dialogue with the AFC M23. Then, since we couldn't agree on that, the summit of the following day on 15th of December could not take place. But you have heard the DRC turning things around, saying that President Kagame didn't show up. No, he didn't show up because there was nothing to sign.
And that was like the last stretch. They say it was the final lap.
We had agreed on everything except on that point. Just a commitment. It was not even solving the M23 question in the Doha process, in the Rwanda process, sorry. But it was just a commitment.
To it. Yes.
But then, you remember in March, the meeting that took place in Doha on 18th of March between President Kagame and President Tshisekedi and the Emir of Qatar. So it's President Tshisekedi who asked
for that meeting to happen.
For that meeting to happen. And then this meeting triggered a series of meetings, be it on a bilateral issue, which later on moved to Washington, and then on the internal issue between AFC M23 and the government. Then the government of Congo, which had made the Rwanda process collapse, eventually accepted to negotiate with the AFC M23 in Doha. So, and then for Washington, what happened is that President Tshisekedi had, at the election of Donald Trump, he approached the US administration, selling almost all his minerals with a hope to get the support of the US in attacking the AFC M23 actually also attacking Rwanda, but the US government adopted a rational position, which is to have the two parties discussing and agreeing on a peace agreement and also on an economic agreement.
So you're insinuating that when he went there, he didn't expect things to turn out this way?
Exactly.
He didn't expect the involvement of Rwanda.
So it's President Tshisekedi who, I would say, killed the Nairobi and Rwanda processes, and then who went to Washington and Doha to seek an agreement with Rwanda and AFCM 23.
Yes. Now, talking about President Tshisekedi, on returning from Washington, 8th of December, there was a public address, and he said that Rwanda is already violating the Washington Accords. Were you surprised by that? You know, you guys had been there, you have signed, sat next to each other, then he comes back and lays these allegations at your feet, points the fingers at you. Were you surprised by the accusations, and how did you interpret that statement that went viral?
Frankly speaking, I was not surprised. I would recall that President Tshisekedi had, in 2023, promised to bomb Kigali without setting foot on the ground. He promised to help the Rwandan youth overthrowing what he called a diabolical government. And then, even last year in Rwanda, we had signed a ceasefire that went into force on 4th of August, last year in 2024. Then what happened at that time? I'm talking about last year, not even this year, is that starting October, there was further militarization of the government with new Burundian troops, with new mercenaries, those Romanian mercenaries who passed through Rwanda,
the ones who went through
back to their country, and then attacking positions of the AFCM 23, then violating the ceasefire. That happened last year. And this year, it happened again. Not in these last days, but these last weeks and months. After the signing of the Washington peace agreement on 27th of June, there is no single day that we didn't alert the international community, our counterparts, about the daily bombings, the airstrikes by the DRC army through their fighter jets and attack drones against the position of the AFCM 23, which is against the ceasefire, but also against the Banyamulenge communities in South Kivu in a context of rise of hate speech. And then there is an aggravating factor, which is the Burundian forces. There are now close to 20,000 Burundian forces in South Kivu, which have surrounded the Banyamulenge community in Minembwe, preventing them from acceding to the markets, then basically starving them. So this is an issue. We have these two issues of violation of ceasefire by Burundian forces and by the DRC army. So it's strange or cynical to see a president or a government that are violating openly the ceasefire to complain about the violation of ceasefire. I even recall that in one of the meetings of the Joint Security Coordination Mechanism held on 7th of November, the DRC had committed to a moratorium on those airstrikes in exchange to the lifting of some of the Rwanda's defensive measures. This was agreed on but never respected by DRC because the airstrikes continued. So I think we should be rational here. What is a ceasefire? A ceasefire is an agreement between two parties, two warring parties, to silence the guns, not to shoot at each other. There is no ceasefire that should be respected only by one party. So we have a party, the DRC government, that has been bombing the other party, and then the other party has to retaliate. So if we want to achieve peace, we need to ensure that all parties, starting by Kinshasa, abide fully by the ceasefire.
So when you agree to these ceasefires and then there's a party that violates them, what are the repercussions in the clauses, in the agreements that you sign? What should be done to that person that violates the ceasefire, for example?
Actually, you should ask that question to the international community, to those big powers, to the mediators, because we have alerted them almost on a daily basis. There is no, I didn't read any single statement by the UN Security Council, by the European Union, by any of those powers calling out Kinshasa about the violation of ceasefire. There is none. But now we have, yesterday, there was a declaration of the International Contact Group of Western countries, now falling on Rwanda, all of them all together, and the same 23, without any word on the airstrikes, without any word on the Burundian forces. So it's impossible to have peace or to have a ceasefire implemented if one party can do whatever it wants without being held
Without any
accountable.
consequences,
So
yeah.
it's the core of the matter that should be addressed.
You know, I'd love you mentioned the Western countries that are within the international contact group. I wanted us to look at that with what's currently going on in Uvira, which is considered a strategic location, transport, economic hub. And we've had a lot of people say things about it. There's some international groups, European countries that have had something to say about it. What would be your official reaction to especially that community within the international contact group?
My official reaction is why are they waking up now? We have been alerting them for the past weeks and months about what was going on. In a conflict, when you strike every day on the other party, in a context of a ceasefire, the other party at some point react or retaliates.
Absolutely.
So why would the international community wake up suddenly now while the situation was going on for several weeks and months?
Yes. And then last Monday, just the other day, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Burundi, now we move away from DRC, he seemed to alert the international community to the fact that Rwanda had fired shots into Burundi. These neighbors of ours, did Rwanda fire shots into Burundi? And then when he appeared on an interview with RFI this morning, he said, if Uvira happens to fall, all options are on the table. So I would like you to respond to those questions. Did Rwanda fire shots into Burundi? And what options do you think the minister is referring to?
This is a complete lie. There was no shot from Rwanda to DRC. There was rather shots from Burundi to Kamanyola in DRC. And then we have now more than 1,000 refugees from that place who came to Bugarama, who are now in Nyarushishi Transit Center. As for the all options are on the table for Burundi, there is only one option for Burundi, is to withdraw from eastern DRC, to withdraw from South Kivu, because they are, first of all, they are attacking a Congolese community, the Banyamulenge community. They are starving them, they are surrounding them. And second, they are destabilizing this region. And then third, they constitute a threat, a security threat to Rwanda because of their alliance with the FDLR, their alliance with the FRDC, which has vowed on several occasions to attack Rwanda. And I would recall that following the fall of Goma and Bukavu, the security organs of Rwanda and Burundi were in contact.
Okay.
In March last year, they agreed on certain steps to de-escalate in order to bring peace in the region. But following that, we had interviews of President Ndayishimiye in France 24, in BBC, accusing Rwanda of trying to overthrow the government of Burundi. So I was even surprised. We were all surprised. Our security colleagues informed their counterparts. I informed my then counterpart about the situation, because that was followed by further militarization by the Burundian forces in South Kivu. So Rwanda is ready, as we have said on several occasions, to bring peace and to discuss about the implementation of the ceasefire on the agreement that we have signed. But for that, we need good faith and political will by all parties, especially the DRC government and Burundian government. We cannot live in a fantasy world of just putting everything on Rwanda, on FCM23, while we all know, because it's not only Rwanda, even those Western countries, when we talk to them about those airstrikes, they agree with that. So they know that these strikes are happening, but yet we didn't see any of their statements, public statement, calling President Tshisekedi to respect the ceasefire.
As we conclude, when it comes to the processes, the peace processes, there are doubting Thomases. There are those who doubt Rwanda's intentions or they choose to question the process. What are the tangible signs that these processes will lead to lasting peace? And then what are those non-negotiables for Rwanda as we continue on this path?
First, we sign the best agreements that you could sign. We have the Washington Accords for Peace and Prosperity is really a good comprehensive agreement with security, political and economic aspects. So we don't need to negotiate any other agreement. What we need is to implement what we have signed. And then for that, I always say that it's about political will and good faith. So what needs to be done is about starting by the ceasefire. But the ceasefire should be respected by Kinshasa. It's as if now Kinshasa can do whatever it wants. Actually, they even said publicly that they want to recapture the territories that they lost, but they need to respect the ceasefire. Nothing can be achieved without that. And then the Burundian forces, which act as a spoiler in the region, also should withdraw from South Kivu. So those are things that need to be done. And of course for Rwanda, what matters for us is our security and the security of our people. This is something that we will never negotiate with anyone. So if they want to see if Rwanda is committed to peace, they should test us and implement what they have to do. They should implement the ceasefire, and then they will see if Rwanda behaves or misbehaves.
So we judge you based on that.
Exactly. So, but for that, the international community needs to put pressure on Kinshasa and Bujumbura in order to ensure that the ceasefire and the peace agreement are fully respected. And
you'd say that Rwanda has fully respected every single agreement that you've signed? Anything you've put your finger on, you have respected your end of the bargain? We have done it. And even President Kagame in Washington, at the ceremony to sign the Washington Accords for Peace and Prosperity, said it. He said that Rwanda will never been found wanting or something like that. Yes, he said that.
Yes, he said that because we respect all the agreements. But sadly, we are used to agreements that we signed. There are many agreements that were signed over the past 25 years. But we are used to the lack of respect and implementation by the DRC side. Yeah. Thank you so much for making time. Glad to have you watch this conversation with the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, Olivier Nduhungirehe. You take care.